Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Welcome into To The Point. A lovely Thursday here on August the 24th. The month is flying by. And you think August 24th, you think NFL, you think Major League Baseball. Maybe you'll get some news on other fronts, CFL. But we got some hockey stories to talk about today, and we got a bombshell that dropped late yesterday about Auston Matthews and the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we're going to dive into it completely today. I have lots of thoughts, winners, losers of this deal. I'm going to speak to Leaf fans directly today to make them feel better or maybe worse or just the same because I think this is pretty clear cut and we'll get to it throughout. But let's just start with the obvious on this topic. It's not a surprise that Auston Matthews is resigning. To me, the cat was out of the bag when the Los Angeles Kings decided to trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois. When Pierre-Luc Dubois was acquired, it eliminated the Kings' ability to trade for Auston Matthews, and clearly, he didn't want to leave Toronto. If you don't think there's tampering, if you don't think Auston Matthews' agent could have gotten a little word in to other general managers that he might be interested in the team, you're not seeing the forest for the trees. You're out to lunch. It happens. Sure, it's against the rules. You're not allowed to do it. That's a part of life. That's the best thing to do in life is not doing what you're told. So if he wanted out of Toronto, if he wanted to explore, that could have happened, number one. He always wanted to stay in Toronto. So there's no surprise there. One thing I am surprised by. This was done yesterday, August 23rd. What a nondescript Wednesday, mid to late afternoon, evening, supper time. He breaks it himself, which good for him. Don't let an insider break your news. Why not? Break it. He breaks the news. He tells people it's coming. I gotta think this is an Auston Matthews idea and not a team idea. And the reason I say that is if I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs, I want to announce this on the first day of training camp. All the media is there. All the fans are watching. It's a perfect spin. You just lost in the playoffs. Haven't really spoken to anybody since. How about deflect all of that? We got our star. He's back 4 more years. Great news. Highest paid player in the league. Yada, yada, yada. It just sells itself. There's some questions. Oh, the same core is back and you haven't won jack shit since coming here. Do you think that's a mistake? Wow, Bill Nylander still remains unsigned. What's happening? No, Auston Matthews, but they go in a different direction. And this is clearly, I think, player empowerment from the NHL. You see it in NFL. Obviously, the NBA is player empowerment 101. But I think this is creeping into hockey of a player empowerment move anyway, because it makes no sense for the Maple Leafs to announce this on August the 23rd. Matthews announced it. They do what they're told when it when it comes to Auston Matthews, and it happens that way. So that surprised me. I thought it'd be the opening day of training camp. I even told somebody that this weekend chatting. I said I think it'll be that date in mid to late September, but no, they do it now. So I was wrong about that. Now, the terms of this deal. 4 years, 53 million. 13.25 million per season, making him the highest paid player in league history. Also means he will be a free agent when he's 31 years old. Interesting to remember that. First of all, this is a smart decision by Auston Matthews, and clearly it doesn't matter if it's Brad Treliving, if it's Kyle Dubas. He runs the show in Toronto. I thought it'd be a 5-year deal. He says, nope, we're doing less than last time. We're doing 4. Good on him. These 8-year contracts are stupid. They are for multiple reasons. Okay, 8 years. It's nice if you don't trust that you're that good of a player, but if you can double dip, the salary cap's going to go up, you're going to make more and more money. Why box yourself in? When you can maximize your value, make more money every time, just make more and more money on these contracts. Pasternak, McDavid, McKinnon, they're not blueprints of what people have to do. And that's something that's out there that's just stupid. I get it if you're a general manager, and I like to think like a general manager, but there's also times just to think with common sense. Okay, this guy signed for 8 years, this guy signed for 8 years, then I have to sign for 8 years. What fucking logic is that? That's a fan perspective. Well, this guy did it, then my guy has to do it. If somebody jumps off a bridge and it's the middle of winter and there's ice at the bottom, should you? Should you go do it? Well, it's a stupid decision, Noah. Why would you do that? Exactly. Auston Matthews believes in himself, and he's one of the best players in the world. He's not the best player in the world. He's not the second best player in the world. We'll have a players ranking as we get closer to the start of the season, but he's damn good. He's got the most goals since entering the NHL, 2 more than Alexander Ovechkin. I believe he has 299 since 2016-17 season. So in saying that, he's free. He's going to be a free agent. He's got the leverage. He's had a pretty great career, playoffs. He's been better than even I've looked at when it comes to statistics. I think in big games he doesn't show up, but that's a whole other story. And when you need him the most, I don't think he's all that good. But again, I'm a Leafs hater to some people, so that's a whole other debate. But for Auston Matthews, this is smart. His agent, this is smart. 4-5 years. And the thing is, this is smart for the team as well. And I don't think enough people think, just come with me on this journey. 8 years. 8 years is a long time. That's 2 degrees, 8 years. That's becoming a doctor, 8 years. Or for Tommy Callahan, basically getting 1 degree. If you're familiar with Tommy Boy, you'll get the reference. But 8 years, 2 university degrees, that's how long that is. It's a big commitment. The longest contract you can sign in the NBA is 5 years. I wonder why that is. It grows the game, player movement. It also means you can make a lot of money during your career. It maximizes your earning potential, which at the core is what the players are doing. Sure, they're playing hockey for a living, and they love their sport, and they want to win, and all this, that, and the other. But only one team wins every year. And if I'm going to lose, I'm going to make the most money that I can. And I'm not saying Auston Matthews isn't going to have success, but am I going to lose and be kind of rich? Or am I going to lose and be filthy rich? I'll be filthy rich. That's just me. If I can. He could have took more money. 13.25. I'm surprised he didn't take 14. I thought it'd be 14, 14.5. I'll take that on the chin. I thought it would be more. Didn't turn out to be more. This is, and this will be hard for some people to look at it this way, it is a hometown discount. It absolutely is. Because when you can make more and you don't take it, that is the definition of discounting. When you sell your business for 2.5 and you have an offer for 3, but you like the guy that bought the business more than the other guy who offered you more money, you took less money. That's a discount, isn't it? In business, isn't that that's how it works. So he did the Leafs a favor, and it'll be hard for some people to realize that, but he did. He signs a 4-year extension. Who knows where the Leafs are in 4 years? Their best chance to win are the next 2 years. The next 2 for Toronto, because their team is aging, But looking at this season upcoming, and this, I'm sure it's said every year because they're trying to make plays, and they're always in the top of the betting lines. But this year it's true. They've never had a better chance to win the Eastern Conference and represent them in the Stanley Cup final. You know why? Boston is treading water. Tampa gets worse every year because they won. That's how Gary Bettman's league works. Florida has half their team in the ER. Carolina's good. Pittsburgh's good, but they're a nursing home, old folks home team. Washington, Columbus, what the fuck are they doing? Look around. Buffalo and Ottawa haven't made the playoffs in a fucking decade. So you look at, you see everybody and say, wow, we're pretty good here. We got the best goal scorer since the end of the league. Check. We got a guy who scores 80 points every year and get us 40 goals in Bill Nylander, and boy, is he good looking. Check. We have one of the best passers and top 5 winger in the world, Mitch Marner. Check. We don't got a number one. We don't have a number one defenseman, but they never have. They haven't had one since I've been alive. Almost 25 years I've been born. I was once a Leaf fan. They've never had a number one defenseman. Just save it with the Thomas Caberlet. Never was, never will be. Brian McCabe, spare me. But, I mean, they've never had it that way. Might work. I mean, it does work for other teams, but that's a whole other story for another day. They have a good team. And sometimes your team's just okay, but if the teams around you are worse than okay, if that's the bar and everybody else is down here, you're doing pretty well for yourself. So you have to me, it's a 2-year window with this group to try to win before it goes to shit, before you become Tampa, before you have to start offloading pieces and players get older and you can't bring back everybody and it gets complicated. Auston Matthews re-signs for 4 years. Who says he plays in Toronto all those 4 years? I don't think it's a guarantee. If your team's no good and there's a trade that makes sense, you trade the player. Erik Karlsson was dealt in his prime to the San Jose Sharks. He ended up there. He was in his prime in Ottawa, got traded. Because eventually, your team isn't that good anymore. Players get swapped around. Mike Richards, Jeff Carter, traded in their prime. Okay, they weren't as good as Auston Matthews. Okay, well, they at least got to a Stanley Cup final in Philly when they got traded. Pretty good players. It happens. It happens to players. And I'll speak directly to Leaf fans right now. You should be ecstatic. And you don't got to be appreciative but what I will say is he did take less. That was never thought it was going to happen. He did. I'm not the biggest Auston Matthews guy. He gets enough praise that I don't have to give it to him. It's one of my favorite. That's a Noah Warren special, that quote. There's enough people that like something that I don't have to. I want that on my tombstone when I die. Bookmark that, Mom. But there's enough people that like Auston Matthews that I don't have to, kiss up to him. But he could have taken 14, 14.5, 15. Well, McKinnon only makes 12.6. But that doesn't matter. Again, that doesn't matter what somebody else does. The price goes up. And he took less and got 4 years. He wouldn't go above 4 years. Good on him. Brad Treliving, did he make a mistake not going longer? I don't think so. I think this might be Brad Treliving learning from a mistake. Huberdeau was signed to a long-term deal. Does that look great right now in Calgary? He's fired, so it doesn't matter. But does it look good on their books? No. He's got Auston Matthews in a 4-year window. That's about the time Brad Treliving will be the GM of this team, in all likelihood. Because things happen, right? Things change. So he keeps him his duration. He doesn't screw the next GM. I think he did a pretty good job. And Auston is one of the best players in the world. You're not locked in anything. You have the potential to trade him if the team goes off the rails and is a deadline trade where a team could have 2 kicks of the can at him or 1. Best case scenario, he's a Leaf his entire career. Of course, that's the best case scenario for every team. Kopitar in LA, Crosby in Pittsburgh. Sure, it's great when a great player can play the entirety of his career in one place. But if a player leaves an organization, does that devalue them at all? No. You know how I know that? Wayne Gretzky played for St. Louis, and he played for Edmonton, he played for LA, he played for New York, and he's regarded as the best player to ever play the sport. So it doesn't matter if you play, your history and your legacy is ruined if you leave one team. That's a bunch of malarkey. It's stupidity. It's wrong. Maybe he plays till he's 38 and he's a Toronto Maple Leafs entire career. Great. Fantastic. 20 years in Toronto. What could be better? Well, I could think of a couple. Things. But, good for him. That's what that's what makes him excited. Hunky dory. Wish him the best. But this is a win. This is a win for Toronto, and it's a win for Auston Matthews. It's a perfect situation. Nobody lost here. 8-year deal. Why would you do it? If you're a depth piece, you don't trust, or you had some injury problems, okay. Give me 8 years. Pastrnak signing in February, March, whenever that was, for 8 years was a mistake. And I love David Pastrnak. He's my second favorite player in the league. I think the guy's a stud. I think other than Kachuk, he's the best winger in the league. Rantanen's right there, but that was Rantanen signed for 7 years. Mistake, my opinion. McKinnon, 8 years. Mistake. McDavid, 8 years. Draisaitl, mistake. You think McDavid and Draisaitl just lock in with Edmonton right now? I think they look around and say, well, could we do better? Can I win somewhere else? Do I want to stay in Edmonton, this shithole of a city? Maybe not. Maybe there's something better. Maybe the grass is greener on the other side. It creates options for Matthews and the club. It keeps them competitive, and the Leafs keep their star. The biggest thing. He stayed. One thing that the Leafs brass has done better than most organizations over the last, I would even say close to a decade, since Marner and Nylander came in before Matthews. They have built a culture where their star players love it. They love it in Toronto. Marner gets hounded like crazy because he's from Ontario. And when they lose, he takes the brunt of it. Just an observation, but I think it's true. And he never wants to leave. Bill Nylander's from Sweden. And yes, he's in a contract dispute right now. But he says yesterday on the record, 32 Thoughts, he wants to play in Toronto. Loves it in Toronto. Auston Matthews is from Arizona. An Arizona kid who grew up in the sun, grew up in golf courses, wants to spend half of, the majority of his adult life in freezing cold ass Toronto in February. Holy shit, you got yourself a keeper. Think about it. Yes, no one. Arizona, Toronto. Arizona, Toronto. You have to desert Canada to go to Arizona. I'll defect tomorrow. I'll keep my citizenship, sure, but I'm going to the Heat. He's choosing to stay in a city where there's the most media, the most amount of idiots on Twitter, and he loves it. He's sticking around for another contract, another 5 years with this one added on. 5 more years in the 6, 5 more years of Justin Bieber ugly-ass jersey night. Woo! Can't wait. 5 more years. Can he break the UFC in May curse? He has the potential to do it now. This is a big win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And it's a big win for Auston Matthews. But again, he could have taken more money, and he did not. And he chose to stay in a Canadian city, and he's an American-born player. That's not happening. That's another thing. See, it's happening more and more, where these Americans are like, don't really want to be here. Kachuk says, you know what? I'm kind of sick of this. Calgary, not that fun. How about Jacob Trouba? Remember him? Winnipeg? Well, I really like it here, but I want to go to New York. Alex DeBrincat. Ottawa, yeah, it's been a slice one year, but I'd rather go to Detroit. I'd rather be in Detroit than be in Canada. Nick Foligno, a Canadian. Give me to Boston. So, it's happening league-wide, and an American is staying put. It's a big deal. A big, big deal. I think Connor Hellebuck's re-upping in Winnipeg. That American goaltender, I think he's staying put. They can re-sign him now. You think he's staying? I don't think so. How much you want to bet he signs with the American team? Again, I'll take that action. If anyone wants to take a Canadian team and want to have a bet straight up to see where he goes, I'll take an American city. Doesn't have to be warm weather either. Give me cold weather. Give me any state. I'm thinking New Jersey. Maybe I'm wrong. But Auston Matthews is in the prime of his career. Toronto Maple Leafs still have Mitch Marner, still have Bill Nylander, Morgan Riley to a lesser extent. Matthew Nyes, the future second coming of Christ, under contract. You got a team here. You finally won a playoff round. That's success. And you get to a second round and you look at it and you say you lose to Florida and you could have went to a final. True. But on Mr. Brightside here, and I'm doing this for the Maple Leafs, so I'm really in a good mood today. You are in a better position to win this year than last. Because you could argue you might have a better team. It's close. I don't like the Klingberg signing. Ryan Reeves, don't need that. But your conference is weaker. Your conference is weaker. Bergeron's retired. Krejci's retired. Tampa lost Alex Killorn, who had 30 goals last year. Things around you seem to get easier by the day. And you add Tyler Bertuzzi, who could be an X factor, an awesome piece. Max Domi at $3 million, which I'll take any day of the week. I'll take his compete. I'll take his moxie. And he's another guy excited to be in Toronto. So, all in all, a really good day for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You keep your best player. You get him at a number that's less than it could have been. And you remain competitive. And Bill Nylander remains unsigned. I get that. It's business. It's a negotiation. He loves Toronto. Sure. Told that to Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick that yesterday. I'm sure he does. Loves playing with Marner and loves playing with Matthews. And I think in a perfect world, he wants to stay in Toronto. I don't doubt him when he says that. Because I think he's kind of like me. You know, we're both honest souls. Can't lie. We wear our truth. But if he doesn't get the number he thinks he deserves, and I will say I think the negotiation gets more difficult now that the Auston Matthews number is there. But maybe they could go short term with Nylander too. But I think the Leafs might also look in the mirror and say, we love Bill Nylander. Let's try to win with him this year. We have Marner at this number, and we're going to have to re-sign him. They're eligible to re-sign him a year from July 1. And we got other guys that we'll have to keep or make decisions on. Do we have our goaltender of the future, Matthew Nyes, Joseph Wall, these young players that will need contracts? Does Bill fit in? Maybe we keep him, we try to win, and if he walks for nothing, well, if we win a chip, or if at least try and get farther than we ever have, I would do that. Because if you're trying to win, you don't trade away a piece that can help you. If your team stinks and you're a seller, sure. Take this player because he can't help us. And we're not going to make the playoffs anyway, so who cares? Trade him away. But maybe he leaves for another team after you try to win. I can live with that. If I'm a Leaf fan, I can live with that because you tried to win and you can't keep everybody. Chicago Blackhawks went into the 2010 Stanley Cup Final knowing that Dustin Byfuglien was going to remain unsigned. They would lose him in free agency, and they didn't trade him. They kept him for that playoff run, and they won. And he departed the team, and of course it hurt them. And they got nothing for him, but they got a ring, right? Kind of. How about Nathan Horton, 2011, departs Boston. They won a ring. Did it hurt to lose him in the moment? Sure it did. But I mean, you won. It happens all the time for these teams. We could have traded him. We got nothing for him. Alex Killorn this year. Tampa won 2 titles. He goes to Anaheim, and you could have got a lot for him via trade, but you tried to win again. And that's the business that you're in. You can't bring everybody back. And Bill Nylander's a big piece. He's an important player. He's a playoff gamer. But can you find others to fill his void? Yes. You can. And maybe his number could be worth 2 players. Or maybe, here's just a thought creatively. With him remaining unsigned, I think Bill would take a shorter term deal for bigger money. What if you offered him 3 years, $30 million? It's $10 million. Nobody will like that number. But it's 3 years. You only have to deal with it with 3 years. I see it as a 2-year window in Toronto. Maybe it's 3. And you keep it open, and maybe he gets dealt during that time, but he stays because he likes that number. You don't want to give him $9-10 million over 8 years. And if I'm Bill Nylander, I don't want to sign an 8-year deal. What if you got $10 million over 3 years? Keeps you in line somewhat with Marner and Matthews for now. He'd be $900,000 away from Marner until his new contract kicks in. But just some creative things. Is Bill Nylander a $10 million player? Probably not. But does Auston Matthews deserve to be the highest paid player in the league? No, because he's not the best player in the league. But sometimes it's about opportunity and when you're free. Auston Matthews was the next best player available, so he sets the new number for the league. He becomes the highest paid player. Bill Nylander might say, you know what, I'm better than Timo Meier. I'm better than, he's not better than Pasternak, but some of these wingers that have gotten paid. I'm more productive than them. I'm a better player than Nick Ehlers and Timo Meier and these others. He could look around and say, Artemi Panarin is making 11.6. I can't make 10? Artemi Panarin's the worst contract in the NHL, period. The dude couldn't find milk out of a fucking cow, that guy. He couldn't hit water if he falls out of a boat, yet he got $11.6 million from a desperate team in New York, who hasn't been as long as the Leafs, but 1994 was a long damn time ago. So there's parallels to contracts that you look at and say, well, maybe he shouldn't make this, but then you look around and say, holy shit, Artemi Panarin makes 11.6. Maybe he can. It's all about finding the right team and the right contract. It's complicated stuff. But I think you can make, if the Leafs really want to keep William Nylander, you can make it work. By simply erasing this 7-8 year thought process. Number one, I don't want William Nylander on a 7-year deal or an 8-year deal. I want him motivated to continue to play well to earn future contracts. He gets lazy. We see it. Keep playing, keep performing, you'll make more money. But you need to be shoved in the ass to do it. What about 2 years, 20? Would he do that deal? I might. Keeps you in the window to win. If the Leafs can't win anymore, guess what? You can exit stage left and go to another organization, try to win there. Okay, you love Toronto. You can go back when you retire. They'll host another All-Star game. You can go back in February. Hop on a plane, hop on a bird when you with all your money and go visit the city. I'm sure you'll be okay. Stroman loved Toronto. He left. I think he's fine since. Hasn't died. He hasn't keeled over from missing the nightlife. But with the Matthew deal done, I really don't think the Nylander contract is that complicated. Yes, you have to think about the rest of the team and your cap situation and how you're going to make it work. And you'll have Matthews at 13.25 a year from now. And let's say you have Nylander at 10. So that's a lot of money. And you have Marner at 10.9 and Riley. Believe me, you're going to have 4 players making the majority of your cap. But that's the way they've done business. And then Tavares as well. You buy him out. Or you trade him with 1 year left. Maybe he'd accept it with that amount of time left. You have to think creatively. It's not, we can't make this trade because of this. Or, we have this contract. There's ways to get out of everything. Look at Rudy Giuliani. You can't throw him behind bars. He keeps finding ways to escape. You're telling me you can't get a contract off your books? You can. It's called being creative. It's called thinking outside the box. We can't give him this money. It's too long. We'll go with a shorter deal. Trey Living, don't make me do your job for you. God. That's all I do, is do other people's thinking for them. You have about 85 assistant general managers. You have to have some people who know how to run a fucking calculator in there. I'm doing basic math. I barely got out of grade 11. I can figure this shit out. Come on. But as we move on here, good for Auston, good for Leafs Nation. I don't think they're panicking. I don't think there's any rush on the Nylander deal. Again, if you want to keep him, you can figure it out. If you don't want to keep him, I'd still let him play out the season unless you can get a top 2, top 3 defenseman, which I've already stated this, but if I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs and I can acquire Brett Pesce, I'll make that deal straight up. They're not gonna. It would help their defense core. It's the weakest part of their team. But they think they can win with a lesser defense core, which, more power to them. If they do it, great. Again, their conference much weaker than in past years. Let's move on. Also yesterday, the New York Rangers re-signed Alexis Lafreniere to a 2-year, $2.325 million deal per season. So 2 former number 1 overall picks got contracts extensions yesterday. This one took a while with New York. He was an RFA. They had negotiating rights. Nobody offered him an offer sheet or anything to leave the organization. And I got to say, New York has been a disappointing team for me in this offseason. They were embarrassed in the playoffs. They were flat. They play with no kind of fervor, no intensity. They played small. And I just look around and say, well, you're kind of running back the same cast of characters, right? Like you have the same group that we saw last year. Look at this team. Kreider returning, Zibanejad returning, Kakko returning. Trocheck returning, Panarin returning, Lafreniere returning, Hedl returning, VC returning, Pitlick returning, Barclay Goodrow returning. The new additions, Bonino, who's a 4th-line center, Blake Wheeler, who you got for $800,000, who, Defense, Keandre Miller returning, Trouba returning, Schneider returning, Lindgren, Fox, Eric Gustafson's your big addition on the back end. Doesn't add size, doesn't add toughness, makes you worse. If we're being honest here. And you still have Shesterkin and you add Jonathan Quick. I get it. It's tough. I think they could have swung for the fences in a couple of these deals. I would have called on Mitch Marner. I talked about this at the time. But they're a disappointing team that they're hoping will be more successful with a new head coach, Peter Laviolette. Lafreniere was great in the postseason a few years ago. Was not great last year. He's never been a great performer when it comes to just regular season, night in, night out. He doesn't bring it for me. He's not a guy he's only 21, so I don't hate. They didn't have really a choice. They were going to bring him back. It's a 2-year deal. But he played 81 games last year. He had 39 points, 16 goals. He's never gotten to 20 goals in his career. 3 seasons in the NHL. Career high in points was last year. It was up from 8 the year before. So he had a better season on paper. Sure. But their team, I don't love their team. Yes, again, it's a weaker Eastern Conference. But I like New Jersey a lot. I think Carolina's a very good team in their division. New York's got the best goalie in the division by a mile in Igor Shesterkin. And you have Adam Fox, who's great. And when Lindgren's healthy and they're playing together, they're one of the best pairings in the entire league. But I don't know. There's just something about this team. Even with Laviolette coming in, it screams. Washington kept the same group. They just changed their coach. Todd Reardon was fired to bring in Peter Laviolette, and nothing really changed. They didn't have any more success. They couldn't break through. Panarin's not going to get tougher. He's not going to get his spine. He's still going to be the player that hangs out on the outside and doesn't break a sweat when the game's over. Mika Zibanejad's a stud. I love him. I wouldn't trade him. He's one guy that I would keep 100%. Because I just think the guy brings so much to the table. He's only gotten better over the course of his career. Kako, he's another Lafreniere. Disappointing, for the most part, over the course of his career. Has been worse than Lafreniere, quite frankly. Kreider, still a good player, but he's aging. Really good on the power play. Trocheck was the replacement to be the number 2 center. Didn't really work out. Hedl I like. I think Hedl has more potential than Lafreniere or Kako, quite frankly, who are number 1 and number 2 overall picks. And he's playing center. I think he could be a star on this team. I think Trocheck, by the end of the year, could be the number 3 center because I think Hedl has the offensive creativity. He needs to work on his complete game. But the kid can shoot the puck, and he's determined. But, I mean, VC playing minutes, Pitlick, Gaudreau, Blake Wheeler is a second-line player. I don't think he's a second-line player anymore. And you don't really have the depth to bump him lower in the lineup beyond the second line. I like their defense core. Keandre Miller is only going to get better. But this was a situation where the Rangers basically had to bring back Lafreniere. He wanted to return to New York. I think it would have been better for him, even after an entry-level 3 years, to go to another organization. Because clearly it didn't work out in New York so far. I think he could be a really good power forward if he plays consistently, just straight goal line to goal line, straight line hockey. Get in the corner, forecheck. Alexis Lafreniere will never be looked at as a number 1 overall pick at the end of his career, and you go, wow, this guy. But could he be Zach Hyman? Could he be a winger that's a disruptor that ends up scoring more goals just by working really hard and being such a value to a line mate? I think he could be that guy. Because he's not afraid to be physical. He's not afraid to mix it up if he has to. And he does have, obviously, I watched him play his last Q game. It was at the Avenir Center in Moncton. He's a great passer. That was his calling card before he came into the NHL, was his passing ability, was his vision on the ice to see things develop before they actually did. So it's there, it just has to come together. But you see some of these players, like a Michael Bunting, a Zach Hyman, these nondescript wingers, Drake Batherson. Like, could Alexis Lafreniere be as good as Drake Batherson? Absolutely he could. Absolutely he could, because he's more skilled than Drake Batherson. But it's about the commitment and I think accepting that role. So that's one of the most difficult things to do. Will you be a hard-working winger that is not the focus, that is not the best player on his line? In New York, for a while it worked because you had the kid line with Hedl, Kako, and Lafreniere. I would go against that this season. I think you need Lafreniere with a player that there's no debate that the guy is better than you on his line. You're playing with Mika Zibanejad, he's better than you. And you know that. So guess what? You can't be the big dog. He gets the puck first. Go give him the puck. If you're on a line with Kako and you go, I was taking above him in the draft, I'm better. Hedl, I think I'm a better player than Hedl. You might be the guy that says, well, get me the puck. So Benedikt's going to say, hey, Alexi, I'm the dog here. I'm the guy. Go get me the puck. That's your role here. Yes, we all want to have success, but I'm more likely to score a goal than you are. I might pass you the puck, you score a nice goal, but that could be the key to his career, is just putting him on a line where he knows his place. And that sounds harsh, but it's not meant to be. That's sometimes the best thing. You're working with somebody and you look around and go, wow, that guy's really smart. That guy's really smart, but he doesn't do this all that well. Maybe I can help him with that. And you tie yourself to somebody. Jason Spezza, this is a compliment. Kyle Dubas didn't play hockey, didn't grow up in the game. But Jason Spezza says, I know what it's like to be in a locker room. I know what it takes to make it. I can help Kyle on that side of growing a team. I can show him my value of locker room dynamics, meeting a player and knowing if he's going to be a good person, these type of things. And now Jason Spezza is the assistant GM in Pittsburgh 2 years after being done his playing career. That's pretty crazy. Whether he's warranted that position or not, he's got it. Who cares? Run with it, Jason. And he is. Now in Pittsburgh, out of Toronto. So if you see somebody and you go, I can help you with this. That's Lafreniere. You still have talent. You still have skills. Zach Hyman, you think he's having a fun career? Played with Marner and Matthews. Now he's playing with the best player in the world. He's having great numbers. He's making good money. And for whatever reason, he wanted to live in Edmonton. Great. Not my cup of tea. But he's doing it, loving it, writing children's books. He's beyond successful. He's a well-known guy. Really well-known guy. Could Lafreniere be that dude? There's tons of names. Arturi Lehkonen is another one that comes to mind. Success in Montreal, moves on to a line in Colorado. They win a cup. When he's traded for at the trade deadline, he helps them do it. Devontae Smith-Pelly for a minute. Didn't do it forever because he couldn't stay in shape. But I'm going to stay in this third line. I'm going to check, and I'm going to play with Lars Eller, and we're going to work our ass off and score goals. And ultimately, Washington wins a ring, and he's got a Stanley Cup. So I don't think Lafreniere, I don't consider him a bust, because I think a bust is somebody that just is out of the league. Neil Yakupov's a bust. Alexander Daigle was a bust. Lafreniere might not be regarded as a first overall pick like a Connor Bedard or an Auston Matthews or a Connor McDavid. But could he have a successful career and help the Rangers win a Stanley Cup for the first time since 1994? Maybe. And that'll be remembered when your career is over and you go back to Quebec and you say, holy shit, I won a Stanley Cup in New York. And yeah, it was also a first overall pick, remember. That doesn't get taken away from your record. It's still there, and you can wear it with a badge of pride. But Lafreniere sticks around in New York. Other NHL news, Peter Holland, former Toronto Maple Leaf, former Montreal Canadian, has been out of the game for over a year. He signed a PTO yesterday, pro tryout. He's going to go to camp with the Colorado Avalanche. It's interesting. I thought his career was over. But he's going to go try to make the team in Colorado. So good on him. Alex Chiasson, Stanley Cup winner in Washington. He's going to the Boston training camp. He'll look to earn a job there. So a few veterans. And another, this first-round pick, Joe Veleno, signed a 1-year, $825,000 deal with the Detroit Red Wings. So he's staying in Detroit for another year. He's had a disappointing career to this point as well. Another Q guy that hasn't really worked out. Veleno and Zadina, two guys. Veleno decides to stay. Zadina is now in San Jose looking to find more of an impact, find more of a role as their NHL career continues to move on. And finally, the Arizona Coyotes re-signed their head coach, André Tournier, to a 3-year extension. Former head coach of the Ottawa 67s, former head coach of World Junior team. He's coached at the World Hockey Championships for Team Canada. They saw him when he was with Hockey Canada, and they scooped him up, and I think they've really liked him ever since. He's a nondescript person. You'd hardly remember that was who their head coach was because Arizona is just so out of sight, out of mind. But they like him. He's willing to be in Arizona. He doesn't create waves. The team is not going to be good. They know that. I don't think they have to pay him an over a huge sum of money to continue coaching there. They still have to work out if they're going to stay in Arizona or find a new rink or find a new owner. So it's a coach that's not making a whole lot of money. Your team's not going to be that good. He does coach hard, and you respect that about him. And I think he's liked in the fan base, and the players like him overall. So it makes sense. Why move away from something when your goal for Arizona remains the same? If we play well this year and we have success, great. But that's not our number one plan. That's not our number one plan here. That's not what we hope happens. We don't expect to be that competitive a hockey team. So if that happens, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too, because we know who's behind the bench for us. We know who we're dealing with. So fun stuff. And a lot of NHL news yesterday for late August. But training camps will be here before we know it. There's still a few players that need RFA deals. Evan Bouchard remains unsigned with the Edmonton Oilers. There was news yesterday the contract might be done, not quite done yet. For Evan Bouchard, William Nylander remains unsigned, but I don't think that'll be done before the start of the year. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with all of that. But good news for the Leafs on that front. Let's pivot to baseball. I was going to open with the Chicago White Sox. There was a bigger deal yesterday. About 5 p.m. yesterday afternoon, Shohei Ohtani is on the hill for the Los Angeles Angels. Pitches a clean first inning, 2 strikeouts, then gets an at-bat the bottom of the first, hits his league-leading 44th home run. Goes in the second inning, he on the mound, gets an out, then there's a base hit, and he starts to have some pain. Continues to kind of look at his fingers, grabbing his elbow a little bit, and he's forced to leave the game. And it was revealed after, because the Angels played a doubleheader with the Reds yesterday, losing both games. Big surprise. That he has a torn UCL, which is basically an elbow injury, and he will he will not pitch the remainder of the season, but he will hit. The big thing here is Shohei Ohtani is a free agent at the end of the year. And he had Tommy John surgery a number of years ago, and now he has another elbow injury. And Shane McClanahan had an injured UCL, and you see a lot of these players, Dustin May, it starts out with pain in the elbow, and you try to come back the next season, you can pitch a little bit, and then something comes up, and eventually you need Tommy John. So how will this affect Shohei Ohtani's free agency? He can still bat with this injury. But if he can't hit and he can't pitch, then you can't do both things. You can't get paid for both if you only swing the bat. Your contract won't be record-breaking. But with this injury and everything else, I still think he'll get a record contract. I still think a team will take a flyer on him. when it comes to, I'm not saying just the player, it's not a flyer because he's still an all-time great, but he'll take a flyer on his elbow. He'll take a flyer that if he doesn't pitch, takes time off in the offseason, doesn't pitch for the last month and change of an irrelevant season with the Angels missing the playoffs again, and Mike Trout heading back to the IL, he will be cured. He will be healthy come opening day. And it could all be a bunch of malarkey. It could all be fugazi. Maybe 2 starts into next season, Shohei Ohtani will need Tommy John surgery. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible that he'll need something done to that elbow. But I still think teams will look around like the Mariners, like the Angels, hoping to re-sign him, the Dodgers, any team that was in the mix already. This will not they will not make them shy away from Shohei Ohtani as a potential piece that they can bring into their organization. He can still swing. He's got 44 home runs, the most in baseball. He's going to be the American League MVP this year for the second time of his career. And when he can pitch, he's fantastic at it. It's unfortunate because getting to watch him pitch is a work of art. I got to see it live. I'm very fortunate for it. But if I had to place a bet, I think by this time next year, Shohei Ohtani will have had his second Tommy John surgery. And I don't like saying that, but this is what happens. Torn UCL, he might need surgery, might not need surgery, but more often than not, it results in another Tommy John. And what I think teams need to realize is if you're signing this guy for a 10-year contract, 8 years, because baseball, you'll sign guys until they're in a walker. They go against my strategy of what they should do in the NHL. I wouldn't expect this guy to be pitching at age 37, age 38. I think you'll have a designated hitter, and that's what you'll have. A guy that can still hit bombs and still be brand name and still be the guy that people come out to see at the ballpark. But if you're looking around and you expect to see him throwing 99 and hitting the corners and everything, I wouldn't expect that. Maybe you'll get it in the front years of a long contract. But the back end of that, I wouldn't expect to see him on the mound. He will be a designated hitter. He will be David Ortiz for the Boston Red Sox. David Ortiz couldn't play a position. Shohei Ohtani doesn't play a position. If he can't pitch, he's just a DH. And you'll accept it because of the monetary value and because he still brings so much to your team as a DH. But it's brutal news for the Angels. But if he was going to make $600 million, maybe it drops down to $500. Maybe. I think more likely it drops down to $550. Maybe he'll lose $50 million because of this torn UCL. And they'll want to do a physical with him when they sign a contract, certainly. But any idiot could have said, oh, Jacob deGrom is going to get Tommy John surgery again. The Texas Rangers knew this was going to happen, and yet they still signed him because they believed that they could win. And they hope for the best, all the while knowing this is going to happen. This guy missed almost all last year with elbow problems. Wow. I wonder if they're going to go away. No. Was it 5 starts this year? Tommy John, he's going to miss most of next season. You sign him 5 years, he's going to miss 2 of the 5. Woof. He's still getting paid every 2 weeks, though. So DeGrom's happy. He wished he could pitch, but still happy. It's in Texas. Team's pretty good. They're skidding right now. Still, team's pretty good. During the playoffs, like his old team, the Mets, who stink. Speaking of stink, New York Yankees won a game last night. That's big news because they were 9 games below 500, and they had lost 9 in a row. For the first time since 1985, something like that, Aaron Judge hit 3 home runs. Great. Better late than never, I suppose. not really. But Brian Cashman met the media yesterday before Game 2 of the National Series after they lose Game 1. The Washington Nationals, who stink worse than the Yankees. He says this season has been a straight disaster. Nobody could have seen this coming. Yeah, it certainly has been a disaster. Well, I just want to correct him on a couple of things because I'm not Nostradamus, but I did see a few things coming. I remember saying before the year I didn't think the Yankees would make the playoffs, which is going to happen. So check for old NW here. I said this team's not going to be a very good hitting team because who's going to hit? Aaron Judge? Okay. Other than him, Stanton with his 200 batting average, or DJ LeMahieu, who you signed to a second contract for some reason, unbeknownst to me. Josh Donaldson and his can't believe he's still in the league frame. Yeah, that's Anthony Rizzo. Sure, yeah. No, this team's designed well. So you didn't hit well. I saw that coming. And did I think they'd be this bad, getting swept by the Red Sox in the Bronx? Maybe not. But I didn't think they'd be good. I didn't think their pitching was good enough. I just looked at the team and said, this team is so flawed. This team is not well constructed. They're spending money, but they're spending money on bad players. So I did see this coming. Brian Cashman has been around for a long time. Different positions within the organization, GM for well over a decade. And he's looking around going, uh-oh. What's going to happen here? It's Hal Steinbrenner, not George Steinbrenner. George Steinbrenner would have fired him about 5-6 years ago, and Aaron Boone would not be the manager this year. But Aaron Boone's been ejected more than any manager in baseball. We're last place in the American League East. The Baltimore Orioles, who are spending the 26th amount on payroll in the whole baseball, is first in our division and first in the American League. Aaron Judge makes almost as much money as their entire roster. Not a joke, by the way. Go look it up. How are we this bad? Oh, yeah, well, I built this team. And it's old and flawed, and thank God we have Garrett Cole because he's the only thing that keeps us relevant. Aaron Judge, I signed and made him our captain because I needed to do that, but who cares? Because, great, you're a captain of the Yankees. It's a big deal to only Yankees fans. Sorry, Case, but you know it's the truth. So he's our new captain, the first one since Jeter. But our team sucks. Our manager's a loose cannon. We can't pitch. We can't hit. Our season's a disaster. Well, I don't see how Cashman or Boone keep their jobs. They have in the past, but we have to remember, in the past, at least they were making the playoffs. Aaron Judge had won American League MVP, breaks the record for most home runs, the real record, not the stick a needle in your ass record. Beat Roger Maris, the real home run king. So he's the new leader in single season home runs. We lose in the ALCS. Sure, we got swept, but at least we got to the ALCS. Blue Jays didn't do that in our division. Red Sox didn't. They didn't make the playoffs. So at least we lost to Houston. Houston's, dynastic Houston. They win every year. But this year they're going to finish dead last. Red Sox are above them. Orioles, Rays, and the Blue Jays. And not only that, but we've had multiple streaks this year. We lost 7+ games. We have our lowest batting average in August in 60 years. We can't hit with runners in scoring position. We're grinding games out to beat the Washington Nationals, who aren't trying to be competitive. You can sell it if at least you make the playoffs. We're not going to fire people. We're on our way to success. You're not now. You're not now, and eventually the goodwill dries up. They are 17 games out of first place. 4 games under 500. They back 229 as a team. It's quite something. It's quite something, New York. You beat the Nats 9-1 last night, so kudos. Big wing there. But Aaron Judge has missed most of the year. He leads your team in home runs and RBIs. Anthony Volpe's been a good story, somewhat. Doesn't have batting average, but he's stealing runs. Garrett Cole might win another Cy Young. Been pretty good. But I think Cashman met the media yesterday to say, yeah, it's been a disaster of a year. We are aware here. But maybe he wanted to get in front of it and say, I can fix it. Believe me, I know it's a disaster. But we see how we can improve this. I don't think that he's going to get that chance. Because it's easier to give somebody a leash when you're having success. When you look around and say, our team is god-awful, and we're not in the playoffs, and we're kind of a joke, and if the Mets weren't in our same city, this really would be bad. Steve Cohen and Hal Steinbrenner are staring each other in the face going, what the hell happened? We should have been meeting in the World Series. Now we're going to be meeting in October somewhere warm for a pina colada, just lamenting about all the money we just spent to be here and not in our respective ballparks making playoff revenue. The Yankees are an interesting spot. They'll have decisions to make. Hal Steinbrenner's been a patient man, not like his father. But I think he's going to have to act like his father this offseason and make some hard decisions when it comes to his manager and his general manager. The Chicago White Sox have leapfrogged the Yankees in terms of making tough decisions. On Tuesday night, the Chicago White Sox fired their president, Kenny Williams, plus GM Rick Hahn. Both of them have been with the team for over 20 years. They were with the team when they won the World Series in 2005. The White Sox were a team that looked like they could be a World Series contender. 3 years ago, they made the wild card round with Tony La Russa, a really young team, but they lost. But it was progress. Last season, Tony La Russa, disaster. The players hate him. Eloy Jimenez is lazy. You look around, it's horrible attitude in Chicago. And La Russa had to leave for health issues. And they said, you know what? We're gonna move on for Tony La Russa. We got to make some decisions. Well, they bring in a new manager. Charlie Montoyo comes in as the new bench boss, and it's gotten worse. The White Sox are 27 games below 500. They only have 50 wins, and we are in late August. I watched some of that game against the Mariners yesterday. Nobody was in the stands. No attendance. Nobody cares. The biggest highlight they have had all year was Tim Anderson getting KO'd by Jose Ramirez. Dylan Cease, horrible season. Michael Kopech, miserable season. Lucas Giolito, not a great year, traded to the Angels. He's stunk it up since he got there. Lance Lynn had a 6 ERA with them. And every player that gets traded talks about how bad it is. And then Tuesday night, Eloy Jimenez gets asked, does this team need to work on their leadership skills? Do players need to step up? And he says, no, not a priority. This is a full-on disaster in Chicago. Top to bottom. Jerry Reinsdorf, you remember that name, he owns the Chicago Bulls, was in a lot of the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary, because he still owns the Bulls, he also owns the White Sox. He fired the president, he fired the GM, because you can't fire all the players. And I'm sure he would if he could. Because you look around, you have promising guys. Jose Abreu was there for a long time, and he was a great leader and a great representative, but you never won with him. And you had Avasiel Garcia, and they've had good players with the Chicago White Sox, but they never won in a really bad division. But now you're in the worst division in baseball, and you're 27 games below 500. You had all the promise in the world, and you get embarrassed on a daily basis. Nobody wants to step up and take accountability. Your players are a bunch of spoiled brats. The manager you hired is a joke. He's letting all the players run amok in the clubhouse. The White Sox aren't the Cubs. They aren't the glamour franchise when it comes to baseball. But you know about the White Sox. I looked at them a couple years ago and I said, this team could be a World Series winner. They have all the things you'd need, all the things you'd want in a group to be a contender. They got the pitching. They brought in an experienced manager who was older than I would have liked, but okay, he's won a World Series before. Jimenez is talented. They brought in Benintendi, who I liked. They still had Jose Abreu, who was one of the most productive first basemen for like a decade in Major League Baseball, former American League MVP winner. And it just completely went to shit. They're the most disappointing team in baseball last year, without a doubt. Not winning the division, not coming close to winning the division, and the way they handled Tony La Russa was not good. And now it goes from bad to worse. They're going to fire a first-year manager. They fired their longtime president, and they fired their longtime GM. Complete upheaval, complete turnover with the White Sox. And I expect they're going to do what they can to get rid of this roster. But clearly Jerry Reinsdorf says we need new eyes on this. We need new faces. We need a new perspective. Because it's not working here. And it's crazy because I thought it would. I liked the team. This is the team that made the playoffs, unlike the Angels, who have all kinds of promise. They have players, but they never exactly made the playoffs. At least they did once. I thought Chicago could be the Seattle Mariners, who they played yesterday. We haven't made the playoffs in a long time. We haven't had a whole lot of success, but we got talent coming in. We got people excited. People are coming back to the ballpark. Hey, we're fun. Come jump on the train. It's moving down the tracks. Nope. When you see complete turnover like this, you know it's bad. It's complete chaos. We'll see what the White Sox do. I'm sure they wish it was the end of September right now so they didn't have to play the last month. Because they're not making any money on home games, watching yesterday. And the team seems like it hates each other. Tim Anderson's a cancer. He needs to go. He's a pain in the ass. I like his flair, but you can't have swagger and you can't be that cocky when you can't back it up anymore. Which he can't. He says baseball's too easy. He's batting .235. Okay? Could you do a little better than that? Could you be a leader? Could you take some accountability for the disaster that this team has been for the last number of years? No? Okay. Blue Jays were rocked by the Orioles last night, 7-10 0. Game 3 tonight, Kyle Gibson going up against Jose Barrios. You got to feel for Kevin Gausman. 6 innings last night, pitched really well. He has the lowest run support in baseball for any starting pitcher. 3.23 runs per game. Got none last night again, only gave up 2 earned. They can't score runs. They don't do it consistently. Look at a guy like Santander. Not a brand name, not a guy you think of. Hits 2 home runs last night in big moments, coming off an injury. It's been Bichette for most of the year, but Chapman hasn't done it. You're not seeing it from Springer. Don't even get me started on Vladdy Guerrero Jr. The Rays, yeah, they might be playing the Rockies, but they're down 5-3 in the bottom of the 9th. They get 2 runs and they walk it off. Blue Jays got the Orioles again tonight. Then you have the Guardians and you have the Nationals. 2 3-game series against teams that aren't in the playoffs and aren't very good. You have to take advantage of those series. And the Astros lose last night and Seattle loses yesterday, and you can't take advantage of it. You don't make up ground because you don't win your game. Only so many series left. And for most of these teams, you get rid of your non-divisional games because the last 2-3 weeks of the season, it's all divisional series. Astros are going to play the Mariners again. Astros are going to play the Rangers. Blue Jays are going to play the Red Sox. They'll be lucky enough to play New York. Still got to get through Baltimore. You got to play the Rays. You have to go to the Trop, which is their house of horrors. So it doesn't get any easier. You have Baltimore tonight, then you get 2 series. Take advantage of those bad teams. Take advantage of your easy schedule when you get it. Reds and Diamondbacks also play tonight. The Reds have been red hot. The National League. The Phillies are in the first wildcard spot. They have a 2.5-game lead. Chicago and Cincinnati are tied for the second wildcard spot in the same division. San Francisco and Arizona are a half-game back of both of them. So a very tight race. And the Marlins trail by 2 games. So every game is important in the National League in particular. To football, Corey Davis, Jets wide receiver, who we talked about yesterday, former 5th overall pick in 2017 of the Tennessee Titans, decided to retire. I think a couple of reasons. I think he would have been cut the way it sounded. I don't think he wanted to go through that. I don't think he wanted to explore a new team for less money. He just decides to retire and see what happens. Move on to your next chapter. He's only 28 years old. He still has his health. So congratulations to Corey Davis on a good career. Bigger news. San Francisco, we know Brock Purdy is their starting quarterback. He is healthy. He played in the preseason last weekend. I expect to see him some this weekend. But it was a battle to see who was going to be number 2. Trey Lance, who they traded up multiple first-round picks with the Dolphins to get, and pieces and draft picks, or Sam Darnold, who they brought in this offseason. Well, it's set. Sam Darnold is the new number 2 quarterback. He will be the backup to Brock Purdy. And John Lynch just said they're going to explore every option when it comes to Trey Lance. Couple things. If Sam Darnold, with all due respect, beats you out for a job, you're not playing all that well, and I don't think you know how to play in Kyle Shanahan's offense. He likes basic quarterbacks. He worked with Kirk Cousins. He worked with Matt Ryan. He can do it with Brock Purdy, porn star Jimmy. So Trey Lance can't seem to figure it out. I don't think they've handled him all that well. He didn't play enough when it started. He's gone through injuries. I don't think he's gotten a look. And I think it's best for him to get out of San Francisco. Now, where is that going to be? I heard insiders talk about this. Teams are set when it comes to their quarterbacks. It's easier before the draft. It's easier earlier in free agency. I get that. I do think there are landing spots for Trey Lance because I don't think it's going to take a whole lot to get him out of San Francisco. So wherever he goes, he's not going to be the starting quarterback. But these are teams, if I was them, I'd call and I'd just see. First thing that came to mind, Minnesota. Minnesota is a team that expects to be good this year. Trey Lance doesn't have to play. But their backup quarterback to Kirk Cousins, who's on the last year of his contract, by the way, is Nick Mullins. Big Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins played in Cleveland. He's bounced around as the backup quarterback last year. Do I think Trey Lance can be better than Nick Mullins? Yeah, I do. I think it's a better situation. He's a different quarterback from Kirk Cousins, but work with him. Kevin O'Connell, you might be working with a different quarterback in 2024. Maybe it's Trey Lance if he can figure out an offense and stick somewhere. That team came to mind. Number 2, oddly enough, this team's also in on Jonathan Taylor, so you only have so many draft picks. The Miami Dolphins. Talked about it yesterday. Tua, injury prone, head problems, concussions, frail guy. Mike White is your backup quarterback. Mike McDaniel announced this morning he's got a concussion, still in concussion protocol, not playing in the third week of the preseason. So you have 2 quarterbacks with concussion problems? Trey Lance is more like Tua than Mike White is. Trey Lance is more athletic than Tua Tagovailoa. He creates more options. He can use his legs. Might not be the perfect fit. I don't think they're going to do it. I would explore it. Third team, New England. Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi. Could you name a pairing that sounds more boring and more white than Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi? Let's get some color into this. I'm not trying to make a joke about racism. Let's get some flair. Let's get some interest. Trey Lance, if Mac Jones doesn't work out, maybe he's your future. I don't know. Just a thought. And my last team is Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield is QB1 for now. I don't think Tampa's going to be that great of a team. They got a veteran club, I get it, but their team is Tom Brady's gone and you're in decline and Todd Bowles is on the hot seat. Maybe you'll have a new head coach next year. So things are moving on the pirate ship. If Baker Mayfield struggles, it's easy to say, well, Kyle Trask goes in, we give him the reps. I don't need to see Kyle Trask reps. I just don't. He was the last pick of the second round. I watched him play in college. Good, not great in college. Trey Lance was a 3rd overall pick. Maybe he can be something. Take a chance. You can get him for nothing. Maybe by week 6, week 7, when you're 2-5 and you're sick of Baker Mayfield and all his bullshit and him getting hurt or complaining about his shoulder, Trey Lance can come in and he plays out your season. And maybe he'll prove to everybody that he can't play and he's just not an NFL quarterback. But there are too many teams with bad quarterbacks that should at least consider this. San Francisco doesn't need him. Put him in a good situation. Minnesota would be number 1 for me. But Tampa's not far behind because I think they could use him. There's other teams that make sense, but those are just 4 that I jotted down. Most teams, Trey Lance would be a better backup option than the guy that they currently have. The Bills, Matt Barkley, Trey Lance. I'll take Trey Lance. You go through the league. Detroit. Teddy Bridgewater, who got injured every time he had to touch the field last year, or Trey Lance. Jared Goff's always healthy. He's a tough son of a bitch. But maybe he could learn with Ben Johnson in a really good Detroit offense. Pick up some things. I don't know. Teddy Bridgewater, Nate Sudfeld, or Trey Lance. I'll take Trey Lance. Just on optimism and just pure athleticism and talent alone, I know what Teddy Bridgewater is. and I don't want it. It's like Bitcoin. I know what Bitcoin is. I don't want any of it. Give me fucking cash. I'll go bury it. I'll still have it in 10 years when I dig the cash out of the bag whenever I need it. Bitcoin might be worth fuck all. Trey Lance can be something. That money will still be good. Teddy Bridgewater, we know what it is. Doesn't work. So he's on the market. Jonathan Taylor is on the market, Indianapolis. Colts say that he has up till Tuesday to find a trade partner. Reportedly, up to 6 teams have called the Colts, have inquired. 2 teams have made offers. I think the Miami Dolphins are the team that should be the most aggressive. Buffalo not far behind. And then Dallas right behind them. I think the odds of Dallas acquiring him are slim to none. I think Miami. Indy shouldn't do it if they really care about Anthony Richardson and him being productive in his first year. But I'm not ruling it. For some reason, I feel like something might happen with Jonathan Taylor where he ends up on a new team before the start of the season. Help Tua. Would help that offense because I still think Jonathan Taylor can really play. But those are the 2 biggest things to monitor right now in the NFL. Also, Kellen Mond, who we've talked about, was in camp with the Cleveland Browns. Some people looked at him as the backup quarterback. He was released this morning. He was cut. And it looks like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, my guy, 5th rounder out of UCLA, might be the backup. Josh Dobbs is still on the roster. He hasn't played a preseason game yet. DTR should be the backup. He's the best quarterback. He's athletic. If there's an injury, which I wouldn't mind seeing one in Cleveland because it's Deshaun Watson, I won't cry. No tears if he snaps something. And DTR has to get into the game. But Kellen Mond was cut this morning. Tonight we got some baseball. Cody Fajardo returns for the Alouettes against Winnipeg. Unclear if Cody Fajardo is going to play. Also tonight we got NFL preseason: Falcons, Steelers, Colts, Eagles. Tomorrow we're going to do another preview show with the NFC East. Loaded division. That'll be fun to talk about. We'll also preview the weekend to come. U.S. Open starts on Monday. Big Singapore card in the UFC. College football week 0. Not a whole lot of big games. We have a game in Dublin. We'll have a college football preview show next Thursday on the program. Matt Wright will make his return, so I'm looking forward to that. So that should be a ton of fun. So that's upcoming in the next little bit. Hope you enjoyed this today. A lot of fun stuff for an August Thursday. But sports never stops, and that's what makes it so fun. But I'll be back tomorrow on Friday. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Enjoy the nice weather while it's here. Take care. It's to the point.